Well, this is it. You're in the home stretch of completing our full bloom block of the month project. This video will be about piecing that inner border and putting the whole quilt together. All right, so let's get started. So here are my 4 patches. You need 9 of these. If you have an older pattern, it might say 11, but you need 9 of these. And you need 2 of these. Next, we're going to start to sew the sections together. So here are the sections that are pictured on page 17. Piecing the 4 patches and some of the small flowers together, and then piecing those in with the large flowers. So now those sections are going to go together to create the quilt center. And here's the center all pieced. Now we're ready to do the first solid inner border. Cut the strips, piece them, measure, and sew them to the quilt. So the border section starts on page 16 of your pattern, and it starts, step number 1 is to cut these green strips that we've been cutting all along into 2 1.5 by 18 inch strips. So just have to cut them in half so that they're as long as the colored pieces. And now we're going to piece these together. So on page 16, you'll see that you are piecing 3 sets of the strip sets. It says 4, but you need to change that to 3. If you have the original version of this pattern, that'll say 4. Later editions, we changed that to 3. So you're going to make 3 of these strip sets, alternating between color and green. Let me zoom out so you can see my strip sets. So I have 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to cut these into 1.5 inch sections. So I cut my strip sets into segments 1.5 inches wide, and now we're going to piece these together into a long string for the top and bottom border and the side borders. So just read the pattern and it'll tell you exactly how many squares long that they each need to be. When you're cutting your strip sets into these segments, if the set isn't long enough, like these 2 weren't quite long enough to get 12, that's okay, because there's a few extra squares included in the strip sets. All right, so let's get started. So this is how I decided to piece this this inner border. I took all of those segments and I made one long continuous border strip. So now what I'm going to do is count off however many squares it says for the top and bottom border, which is 61. So I'll count off 61 and use a seam ripper and cut that segment, and then count off 61 again. And then for the side borders, I'll count off 75 and then 75. So I finished attaching the first solid inner border, and now I'm about to attach this pieced border. And as you know, when you're attaching any kind of border, you don't want to just start at one end and just sew without pinning or measuring or anything, because of the way that that top border will stretch as you sew it, and then you wind up with wavy borders. So it's the same for this inner border. Now, after you've attached this first inner border, you should measure your quilt, and it should measure 75.5 inches, because that's what I told you to piece this at. It's 75 squares long. They wind up being 1 inch, plus the extra 1/2 inch on either end, the extra 1/4 inch on either end to make the 1/2 inch for 75.5. If your quilt isn't 75.5, you need to adjust this. If it's close and you think you can fudge it, then that's fine. So this, mine will fit, so that's why I'm going to proceed with the way that mine is now. So it's very systematic what you do with borders. First you find your center. So I found the center of this piece border, just like you do with a straight border. Actually, the procedure is exactly the same, but you have seams to deal with. So it could help you in a few ways because you have those seams. You could adjust a few of these seams, make them a little bit skinnier or a little bit wider, and that helps to adjust the whole length of this pieced border to help it fit for your quilt. That's one way to fudge, rather than taking a square off and pulling to make it fit. That's going to make the whole thing wavy. So first you find your center, and then you find the center of your quilt, and you pin that in the center, and then you start pinning at one end, and then work your way towards the center of the top half, and then you do the same for the bottom half of the border. So I'm going to add all these this single checkerboard border next. Here's a quick shot. All three inner borders are done, and we're going to take the remaining small flowers, piece them together, and add the outer pieced border. So here it is, the final product. The original pattern cover and the one that I just finished. My design wall isn't big enough, so I had to hang it out here on the line. But you can see how beautiful it is. It's all done, ready for Barb to quilt. So this marks the end of the third full bloom quilt that we have made. Crazy. Congratulations on finishing your quilt. We're really proud of you. So that's it. I hope that you really enjoyed making this quilt and the entire process of making full bloom. So get it quilted and get it on the bed. I wish that we could give everybody a confetti and balloon party celebration when you finished your quilt, but unfortunately that's not possible. So just know that we are really excited that you stuck with it and that you've completed this project.